Dr. Su-Min Lee wiped the dust from the ancient stone tablet with careful hands. She had been working in these ruins for 3 months. But this tablet was different. The symbols carved into its surface were not like the others she had found. These symbols looked familiar. "Computer, scan this tablet and translate," she said to her field equipment. The scanner hummed for several minutes. When it finished, the translation appeared on her screen. Su-Min read it once, then twice, then a third time. Her hands started to shake. "This cannot be real," she whispered. The tablet told a story about humans from 200 years ago. Back then, humans were just starting to travel between stars. They were weak and new to space. Many human colonies were failing because their technology was not good enough. Then a species called the Kethmori found them. The Kethmori were kind aliens who felt sorry for the struggling humans. They gave humans advanced shield technology that could protect their colonies from dangerous solar storms. This technology saved millions of human lives. In return, the humans made a promise. They would repay this debt when the stars aligned and need called. The promise was written down and sealed with the highest human authority. But that was 200 years ago, and no one remembered the Kethmori anymore. Su-Min packed the tablet carefully and rushed back to her ship. She needed to contact the Human Colonial Council immediately. This discovery was too important to wait. 3 days later, Su-Min stood before the full council in the capital city of New Seoul. The council members listened as she explained what she had found. When she finished, the room was silent. "Dr. Lee," said Counselor Kim, the oldest member, "are you certain this tablet is authentic?" "Yes, sir. I have run every test possible. This is real." Another counselor laughed. "That was 200 years ago. Surely such an old promise means nothing now." Captain Jinwoo Park stood up from the back of the room. He was the commander of the human deep space fleet and had been quietly listening. "With respect, Counselor, a promise is a promise. Time does not change that." The council members looked at each other. They were politicians, used to making deals and breaking them when convenient. But Captain Park was military. He understood honor differently. "Captain Park," said Counselor Kim, "do you know anything about this Kethmori species?" "I will find out," Park replied. "If they still exist, we will find them." Park left the council chamber and went straight to his ship. He called his best intelligence officers and gave them one job: find out everything about the Kethmori. What happened to them? Where did they go? Were any still alive? The search took 2 weeks. What Park's officers found made him angry. The Kethmori had been destroyed. Not by war or disease, but by greed. A powerful alien government called the Galactic Hegemony had wanted the Kethmori shield technology for themselves. When the Kethmori refused to give it up, the hegemony took it by force. The Kethmori homeworld was invaded. Their cities were burned. Their people were scattered across the galaxy like refugees. Most died in exile. Their culture was almost completely destroyed. But some survived. Park's officers found records of Kethmori living in refugee camps and slums throughout the galaxy. They were forgotten people, ignored by everyone. Park took his fastest ship and traveled to a mining station called Omega 7. Intelligence reports said an old Kethmori lived there, working as a janitor. Park found him cleaning floors in the station's lowest level. The alien was old and bent, his skin gray with age. When Park approached him, the alien looked up with tired eyes. "Are you Thexan of the Kethmori?" Park asked. The old alien dropped his cleaning tools. Fear filled his eyes. "I have done nothing wrong," he said quickly. "I pay my fees. I follow all rules. I am not here to arrest you," Park said gently. "I am here because humans owe you a debt." Thexan stared at him. "I do not understand." Park pulled out a copy of the ancient tablet. 200 years ago, your people helped humans. We promise to repay that kindness. I am here to honor that promise. Thexan looked at the tablet and began to cry. You remember, he whispered. After all this time, you remember. Humans always remember their debts, Park said. Word of this meeting spread quickly through the galaxy. Other alien species heard about it and laughed. They thought humans were foolish for caring about such an old promise. The galactic hegemony especially found it amusing. Let them waste their time on one old refugee, said Supreme Chancellor Zeeks to his advisors. It changes nothing. But Park was not wasting time. He was making plans. He called every human fleet commander in the galaxy. He sent coded messages to human colonies. He contacted human businesses and asked them to prepare resources. Most importantly, he began moving human warships. Ambassador Veltar of the Galactic Council noticed these movements first. He sent worried reports to his superiors. The humans are doing something, he wrote. Their behavior has changed. They are moving ships and resources in ways I do not understand. The Galactic Council read these reports but did not worry. Humans were weak and peaceful. They followed galactic law and caused no trouble. What could they possibly do? Park met with Elder Thexan 3 more times. Each time, he learned more about what the Keth Mori had suffered. Each time, his anger grew stronger. Your people saved human civilization, Park told Thexan during their last meeting. You gave us technology that protected millions of lives, and the galaxy repaid you with genocide. End quote. That is the way of things, Thexan said sadly. The strong take what they want. The weak suffer. Not anymore, Park said. Humans are settling this debt. All of it. Thexan looked confused. I do not understand. The debt was for helping you survive. You could repay it with credits or food. I do not need much. Park smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Elder Thexan, you do not understand how humans think about debts. When someone saves our lives, we owe them everything. When someone destroys our friends, we owe them justice. That night, Park sent one final message to the Human Colonial Council. It was short and simple. Debt payment begins now. Across the galaxy, human ships began to move toward the Keth Mori homeworld. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans decided to settle their accounts. Ambassador Veltar stared at the reports on his desk. Human ships were moving everywhere in the galaxy, but no one could understand why. The movements made no sense according to normal military planning. Sir, said his aide, a young Centauri named Kex. The humans have withdrawn from the Arcturus Defense Treaty. Veltar looked up in surprise. That treaty protects their mining colonies. Why would they leave it? Why? Why? Unknown, sir. They gave no explanation. They just said they had other commitments. More reports came in throughout the day. Humans were leaving defense agreements across the galaxy. They were recalling their merchant ships. Their diplomats were giving strange answers when other species asked what was happening. We are settling old business, was all the human ambassador would say when Veltar asked directly. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. 12 different species sent representatives to discuss the human situation. Most were not worried, just confused. Humans are peaceful, said the Rigelian delegate. They have never caused trouble before. This is probably just some internal reorganization. But why move so many warships? Asked the vegan representative. Our intelligence shows they are moving their entire fleet. Quote, Veltar had been watching humans for 20 years. He knew them better than most aliens did. I think this is about that old refugee, he said. The Keth Mori, that Captain Park visited. The other delegates laughed. One old janitor? Said the Altarian. That is impossible. No species would risk galactic war over one refugee. But Veltar was not so sure. He had studied human history. Humans did strange things when they believed they were right. They fought wars over ideas that other species thought were worthless. Meanwhile, on a human flagship, moving through deep space, Captain Park was meeting with his senior officers. The ship's war room was filled with the best military minds humanity had produced. "Status report," Park ordered. Commander Yuki Tanaka, his tactical officer, stood up. "All human fleets are moving to assigned positions. We will reach full deployment in 6 days." "What about intelligence gathering?" Park asked. "Dr. Lee has interviewed 47 Kethmori survivors," replied Intelligence Officer Han Soo-jin. "The picture is worse than we thought." 1. Dr. Soo-min Lee, who had joined the military operation as a civilian advisor, activated a holographic display. "The hegemony did not just take the Kethmori homeworld," she said. "They systematically destroyed Kethmori culture. They burned libraries, destroyed temples, and scattered families across the galaxy." The room was quiet as the officers absorbed this information. Park's jaw was tight with controlled anger. "How many Kethmori survived?" asked Commander Tanaka. "Maybe 10,000, scattered across 300 worlds," Dr. Lee answered. "Most live in poverty, afraid to reveal their identity. The hegemony still hunts them." Park stood up. "Then, we know what we must do. The debt is not just returning their homeworld. We must restore their people and their culture." The officers looked at each other. What Park was suggesting would require fighting the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Sir," said Commander Tanaka carefully, "that means war with the hegemony. They have millions of ships." "Yes," Park said simply. "Do you have a problem with that?" No one answered. They were all thinking the same thing. Humans had never fought a major galactic war. Other species saw them as weak merchants and explorers. But looking at Park's face, they realized something important. Humans had not been weak. They had been patient. Back on the mining station, Elder Thexan was trying to understand what was happening. Other Kethmori survivors had contacted him with strange news. Human ships were visiting Kethmori refugees across the galaxy. Human officers were asking questions about their history and their needs. "What do the humans want?" asked Yexara, a young Kethmori who worked in the station's kitchens. "I do not know," Thexan admitted. "Captain Park said they would repay the debt. But this seems like much more than repayment." The station manager, a fat hut named Brolo, was getting nervous. He had heard rumors about human military movements. "Maybe you should hide," he told Thexan. "When big powers fight, little people suffer." But Thexan did not want to hide anymore. For the first time in decades, he felt something he had forgotten: hope. The galactic hegemony was also getting nervous. Supreme Chancellor Zix-Eth called his military advisors to an emergency meeting. "What are the humans doing?" he demanded. General QX-Tar, the hegemony's top military commander, looked uncomfortable. "Their fleet movements suggest they are preparing for large-scale operations. But we cannot determine their target." "How many ships do they have?" Zix-Eth asked. "Intelligence estimates suggest approximately 50,000 active warships," the general replied. Zix-Eth relaxed. "We have 10 times that number. If they want to fight, we will crush them easily." But General QX-Tar had been studying the human fleet movements more carefully. Something about them bothered him. The humans were moving like they knew exactly what they were doing. Their formations were too good for a species that supposedly had no military experience. "Chancellor," he said carefully, "I recommend we try diplomacy first. We should ask them what they want." "Number." "They will get nothing," Zix-Eth said angrily. "We do not negotiate with inferior species." 3 days later, Captain Park sent a message to the Galactic Council. It was broadcast to every major government in the galaxy. "To all who hear this message," Park said, standing on his ship's bridge, 200 years ago, the Kethmori species helped humanity survive in space. They gave us technology that saved millions of human lives. In return, we promised to repay their kindness when the time came. The message continued. The time has come. The Keth Mori have suffered genocide at the hands of the galactic hegemony. Their homeworld has been stolen. Their people have been scattered and hunted. Their culture has been nearly destroyed. Park's voice grew harder. Humans always pay their debts. We will restore the Keth Mori to their rightful place. We will return what was stolen from them. And we will make sure that those who hurt them answer for their crimes. When the message ended, the galaxy was silent for a moment. Then, the laughter started. Restore the Keth Mori? Supreme Chancellor Zixeth laughed so hard he nearly fell from his throne. These humans think they can fight us? We will destroy their pathetic fleet in a day. But Ambassador Veltar was not laughing. He had seen something in Captain Park's eyes that worried him. It was not the look of someone making empty threats. It was the look of someone who had already decided to win, no matter the cost. On his ship, Park turned to his officers. Send the final deployment order. All human fleets are to converge on the Keth Mori homeworld. Operation Debt Payment begins now. Across the galaxy, hundreds of human warships changed course. They moved with perfect coordination, like pieces in a game only humans understood. The galaxy was about to learn that underestimating human resolve was a very dangerous mistake. The Keth Mori homeworld hung in space like a jewel. But it was a jewel in the wrong hands. Hegemony ships surrounded the planet in massive defense formations. Their dark hulls blocked the light from the system's star. Captain Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the enemy fleet through the view screen. Behind him, his officers prepared for battle. Around him in space, 500 human warships waited for his command. Sir, said Commander Tanaka. The hegemony fleet has 3,000 ships. Admiral Gorthok is demanding that we withdraw immediately. Park smiled coldly. Open a channel to the hegemony fleet. The screen changed to show Admiral Gorthok, a massive, reptilian alien with scars covering his face. His eyes burned with anger. Human fool, he snarled. You are outnumbered 6-1. Leave now, or we will destroy you. Admiral Gorthok, Park said calmly, I am here to return this world to its rightful owners. You are occupying stolen property. Gorthok laughed, a sound like breaking glass. The Keth Mori are dead. We took this world fairly in war. The Keth Mori are not dead, Park replied. And genocide is not war. It is murder. You cannot stop us, Gorthok screamed. We have ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years. Your time is over, Park said. This is your only warning. Leave this system now, or face the consequences. Gorthok cut the transmission and turned to his officers. Kill them all. Show the galaxy what happens to those who challenge the hegemony. The hegemony fleet moved forward like a wave of death. Their weapons charged, ready to turn the human ships into space dust. But the humans did not run. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships disappeared. Where did they go? Gorthok demanded. His sensor officer was checking his instruments frantically. Sir, they are still there, but our sensors cannot lock onto them. Impossible. No stealth technology is that good. Then the human ships reappeared. But they were in different positions. They had moved around the hegemony fleet, like ghosts. Before Gorthok could react, the humans opened fire. The first hegemony ship to die was the heavy cruiser Times Deathbringer Asterisk. Human weapons tore through its shields like they were made of paper. The ship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness of space. More hegemony ships died in the next few seconds. The humans were using weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. Energy beams that could cut through any armor. Missiles that could track targets through any defense. How is this possible? Gorthok whispered. His tactical officer was pale with fear. Sir, their weapons are more advanced than ours. Much more advanced. Much more advanced. Across the galaxy, other species watched the battle with growing alarm. Ambassador Veltar stood in the Galactic Council chamber, staring at the live feed from the battle zone. "This cannot be happening," whispered the Rigelian delegate. "Humans do not have this kind of technology." "They have been hiding their true capabilities," Veltar said quietly. "All these years, we thought they were weak. We were wrong." On the mining station, Elder Thexen watched the battle with tears in his eyes. For 200 years, he had dreamed of returning home. He had given up hope long ago, but now human ships were fighting to make that dream real. "Why?" asked Yexara, the young Kethmori. "Why are they doing this for us?" "Because they promised," Thexen said. "And humans keep their promises." Back in the battle, Admiral Gorthok was learning what human military doctrine really meant. His ships outnumbered the humans. But numbers meant nothing when the enemy could appear anywhere at will. Human ships moved through space like dancers, appearing and disappearing, striking at weak points and vanishing before the hegemony could respond. Their coordination was perfect. Their tactics were flawless. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we have lost 400 ships in 10 minutes. Gorthak could not believe it. His mighty fleet was being torn apart by a force a sixth its size. Impossible. Humans are weak. They are merchants and explorers. Captain Park's voice came over the communications channel. "Admiral, you are correct. We are merchants and explorers. But you made one mistake." "What mistake?" Gorthok demanded. "You thought those were the only things we could be." Another wave of human ships appeared, this time behind the hegemony command ship. Gorthok watched in horror as human fighters swarmed around his flagship. His point defense systems could not track them. His shields could not stop them. Dr. Sumin Lee stood beside Captain Park, watching the battle with mixed emotions. "Captain, is this really necessary? So much death." Park's voice was hard as steel. "Doctor, the hegemony killed millions of Kethmori. They destroyed an entire civilization for profit. Yes, this is necessary." The battle turned into a rout. Hegemony ships began to retreat, but the humans did not let them escape easily. Human pursuit ships followed the fleeing enemy, destroying any ship that did not surrender. In 2 hours, the mighty hegemony fleet was reduced to scattered wreckage. Only a few hundred ships escaped, limping away into deep space. Admiral Gorthak's flagship was crippled but not destroyed. Park opened a channel to him again. "Admiral," Park said, "you have a choice. Surrender and face trial for war crimes, or die with your ship." Gorthok looked around his destroyed bridge. Half his crew was dead. His ship was dying. "This is not over, human. The hegemony will never stop hunting you. Then we will be waiting," Park replied. Gorthak chose death. His ship exploded in a final act of defiance. Captain Park turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to the planet. Tell the Kethmori survivors that they can come home." But Park was not finished. He opened another channel, this one broadcast to the entire galaxy. When he spoke, his words were heard by billions of beings across thousands of worlds. "To all who hear this message," Park said, "the Kethmori homeworld has been liberated. But the debt is not fully paid. Justice requires more than just returning stolen property." The galaxy listened in growing fear as Park continued. "The galactic hegemony committed genocide against the Kethmori people. They destroyed cities, burned libraries, and scattered families across the stars. This crime will not go unpunished." Park's image filled screens across the galaxy. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with determination. "To every hegemony official, every collaborator, every being who participated in the destruction of the Kethmori people, we are coming for you. Humanity does not forgive genocide. Humanity does not forget injustice." When the transmission ended, The galaxy was silent. Then, panic began. Hegemony officials started fleeing to distant systems. Species that had helped in the Keth Mori persecution began sending desperate peace offerings to human space. The galactic stock markets crashed as investors realized that the balance of power had shifted completely. Supreme Chancellor Zixeth sat on his throne, staring at reports of the disaster. His greatest fleet had been destroyed in 2 hours by a species he had considered beneath notice. "Sir," said his aide nervously. Zixeth looked old and tired. "Prepare the defenses around the capital, and send a message to all our allies. Tell them the humans have declared war on the natural order of the galaxy." But deep in his heart, Zixeth knew the truth. The humans had not declared war on the galaxy. They had declared war on injustice itself. And that was a war the hegemony could not win. The hegemony capital world of Zixthara had never been attacked in its 1,000-year history. Its massive orbital defense platforms could destroy entire fleets. Its shield generators could protect the planet from any weapon. But as Supreme Chancellor Zixeth watched human ships appear at the edge of his system, he realized that history was about to change. "How many ships?" he asked his military advisor. "Intelligence reports over 2,000 human vessels," General Korthax replied nervously. "But sir, our instruments keep malfunctioning. We cannot get accurate readings." Zixeth stared at the tactical display. Red dots representing human ships seemed to flicker and multiply. "What do you mean, malfunctioning?" "The humans are using some kind of electronic warfare we have never seen before. Our sensors show them in multiple locations at once." Captain Park stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the hegemony capital grow larger on the view screen. Around him, the largest human fleet ever assembled prepared for the final battle of their debt payment campaign. "Sir," said Commander Tanaka, "all human fleets report ready. Operation Clean Slate is prepared to begin." Dr. Su-Min Lee looked uncomfortable. "Captain, the population of that world is over 30 billion beings. Most of them are civilians." Park's expression was hard. "Doctor, those civilians elected leaders who committed genocide. They profited from Keth Mori suffering. They celebrated when the last Keth Mori cities burned. But not all of them," she began. "All of them stayed silent," Park interrupted. "Evil wins when good people do nothing. The hegemony people did nothing for 200 years. Across the galaxy, other species watched the approaching battle with terror. The humans had already destroyed 12 hegemony strongholds in the past month. Each victory had been more decisive than the last. Ambassador Veltar was desperately trying to organize a peace conference. "The humans must be stopped," he pleaded with the Galactic Council. "They are destroying the established order." "What order?" snapped the Centauri delegate. "The order where the strong devour the weak? Maybe it is time for that order to die." "You do not understand," Veltar said urgently. "If the humans win this war, they will become the most powerful force in the galaxy. Who will stop them when they decide our species are inconvenient?" The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some species wanted to help the hegemony fight the humans. Others wanted to stay neutral. A few were secretly hoping the humans would win. Meanwhile, on a transport ship heading toward the Keth Mori homeworld, Elder Thexan sat with 300 other Keth Mori survivors. They were going home after 2 centuries of exile. "Elder," said Yexara, "what will we find when we arrive?" Thexan looked out at the stars. "I do not know, child. Our world was beautiful once. Green oceans and silver cities, libraries that held the wisdom of ages. Will the humans help us rebuild? They have already done more than we ever dared to hope," Thexan said. "But rebuilding our culture is something only we can do." Back at the capital world, the battle was beginning. Hegemony defense platforms opened fire as soon as the human ships came within range. Massive energy beams lanced out across space, each one powerful enough to destroy a moon. But the human ships moved like ghosts. They appeared, fired, and vanished before the hegemony weapons could track them. The defense platforms found themselves shooting at empty space, while human missiles struck their weak points with surgical precision. "Impossible!" General Korthax screamed. "Those platforms have been protecting us for centuries." "Apparently not well enough," Zixeth said bitterly. One by one, the orbital defenses died. Human ships moved closer to the planet, their weapons systematically destroying military targets. But they did not fire on civilian areas. Park opened a communication channel to the planet's surface. "Supreme Chancellor Zixeth. This is Captain Jin Woo Park of the Human Colonial Fleet. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally." Zixeth appeared on the screen, his scaled face twisted with rage. "Never. The hegemony will fight to the last being." "That can be arranged," Park said calmly. "You think you have won?" Zixeth snarled. "You are just humans. Weak mammals who should be serving their betters." Park's expression did not change. "Chancellor, you made the same mistake that every bully makes. You confused mercy with weakness. For 2 centuries, humans have been patient with galactic injustice. We traded with you, negotiated with you, even fought alongside you against common enemies. You thought this meant we were soft. What is your point, human? My point is that patience and mercy require strength. We could have conquered this galaxy at any time. We chose not to because we hoped you would learn to be better. But you never did." The transmission cut off. Zixeth turned to his generals. "Activate the planetary shield. Prepare every weapon we have." But the humans were already inside the shield. They had somehow passed through the energy barrier as if it were not there. Human ships descended toward the planet's surface, targeting government buildings and military installations. The hegemony army fought bravely, but their weapons were useless against human technology. Human soldiers moved through hegemony positions like death itself, their armor shrugging off enemy fire, while their weapons cut through any defense. In the capital city, Zixeth barricaded himself in his palace with his most loyal guards. But even the palace walls could not stop the humans. They moved through the building like shadows, disabling guards without killing them when possible. Captain Park himself led the final assault on the throne room. When the doors opened, he found Zixeth sitting alone on his throne, his guards unconscious around him. "How?" Zixeth whispered. "How did you become so powerful?" Park walked slowly toward the throne. "We never became powerful, Chancellor. We always were. But power without justice is just tyranny. We waited until we had a just cause." "The Keth Mori debt," Zixeth said bitterly. "Yes, you taught us that the galaxy respects only strength. So we will give you strength. But it will be strength in service of justice, not greed." Zixeth laughed weakly. "And who decides what is just? You?" Park shook his head. "Not us. The victims, the oppressed, the forgotten peoples that your empire ground beneath its boots." He gestured to his communication device. "Elder Thexon, you may address the former Supreme Chancellor now." The hologram of the old Keth Mori appeared in the throne room. Thexon looked at Zixeth for a long moment before speaking. "I do not hate you," the elder said finally. "Hate would poison what remains of my people's soul. But justice must be done." "What justice?" Zixeth demanded. "My people will never accept human rule." "They will not live under human rule," Park said. "They will live under galactic law, real law, enforced equally on everyone." "And the hegemony?" "The hegemony is finished," Park said. "Your empire dies today. Your war criminals will face trial. Your victims will receive justice. And your people will learn to live as equals instead of masters." Zixeth slumped in his throne, finally understanding that his world had ended. "What happens to me?" "Thanks for watching." You will stand trial for genocide, Thexan said. But you will receive a fair trial, with proper legal representation. That is more mercy than you showed my people. As hegemony resistance collapsed across the galaxy, other species began to understand what the humans had really done. They had not just won a war. They had rewritten the rules of galactic civilization. Ambassador Veltar sent his final report to the Galactic Council. The humans have won completely. But they are not behaving like conquerors. They are freeing slaves, returning stolen property, and establishing courts to try war criminals. I do not understand their motives. But Elder Thexan understood. As his ship approached the Kethmori homeworld, he saw human construction ships already beginning to repair the damage of centuries. They were not claiming the world for themselves. They were preparing it for its rightful owners. This is what honor looks like, he whispered to himself. This is what it means to keep a promise. The debt was almost paid. But the galaxy would never be the same again. Elder Thexan stood on the balcony of the restored Temple of Memory, looking out over the rebuilt capital city of his homeworld. 6 months had passed since the humans had returned this place to his people. 6 months since the impossible had become real. The city below sparkled in the morning sun. New buildings rose alongside carefully restored ancient structures. Gardens bloomed, where once there had been only ash and ruin. Kethmori children played in parks that their grandparents had thought lost forever. Elder, said Yexara, approaching with a datapad in her hands. The human construction teams have finished rebuilding the Great Library. They say it is ready for the sacred texts to be returned. Thexan smiled, feeling tears in his old eyes. The texts that we thought were destroyed forever? Captain Park's people found them in hegemony vaults across the galaxy. Stolen treasures, hidden away like trophies. The humans have returned every single one. Below in the city, human workers moved among the Kethmori rebuilding crews. They worked without payment, without recognition, simply because it was the right thing to do. When asked why they continued to help, their answer was always the same. The debt was not fully paid until the Kethmori culture lived again. Captain Park stood in the War Crimes Tribunal on the neutral world of Centaura Prime. Before him, former Supreme Chancellor Zix sat in the prisoner's dock. The trial had lasted 3 months, with evidence presented from across the galaxy. Zixeth of the former galactic hegemony, said Judge Kim Hansol, a human appointed to lead the tribunal. You have been found guilty of genocide, crimes against sentient beings, and violations of galactic law. The evidence against you is overwhelming. Zixeth looked older and smaller than he had in his palace. The weight of his crimes had crushed his spirit. I do not ask for mercy, he said quietly. I know what I have done. The court sentences you to life imprisonment on the penal colony of Tartarus. 7, Judge Kim announced. You will spend your remaining years helping to rebuild what your regime destroyed. Some in the gallery called for execution, but the humans had insisted on mercy even for the worst criminals. Death was final, they argued. Prison allowed for the possibility of redemption. Dr. Sumin Lee watched from the observer section as guards led Zixeth away. Justice had been served, but she felt no satisfaction. Too many had died for anyone to truly celebrate. Across the galaxy, the transformation continued. The humans had not claimed a single world for themselves. Instead, they had created something new, the Galactic Justice Council. Every species had representation. Every voice could be heard. Ambassador Veltar, now serving as the Council's first Secretary General, stood before the assembled delegates. The humans have given us a gift, he said in his opening address. Not conquest, but the chance to build something better. The new constitution was simple, but revolutionary. No species could enslave another. No government could commit genocide. All peoples had the right to exist and govern themselves. And humanity had appointed itself as the enforcer of these rights. But who watches the watchers? Demanded the Rigelian delegate. What stops humans from becoming the next hegemony? Captain Park, representing humanity on the council, stood to answer. Nothing stops us except ourselves, he said honestly. We could become tyrants tomorrow if we chose, but we won't, because that would betray everything we believe in. Pretty words, scoffed the Altarian representative. But power corrupts all beings eventually. Park nodded. You are probably right. That is why we are limiting our own power. Humanity will serve on this council for 50 years. Then step down. We will help you build a just galaxy, then let you run it yourselves. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. No species in galactic history had ever voluntarily given up power. Meanwhile, on dozens of worlds, other forgotten peoples were finding hope. The humans had not just rescued the Kethmori. They had created a precedent. Oppressed species across the galaxy were petitioning for protection. The Velnari, enslaved by the merchant guilds for centuries, were freed and given their own worlds. The aquatic Delphi, whose oceans had been poisoned by industrial dumping, received the technology to clean their waters. The crystalline shard people, considered non-sentient by most species, were recognized as full galactic citizens. Each rescue operation was led by human forces, but included volunteers from dozens of other species. The galaxy was learning that justice was not just a human concept, it was universal. On Earth, in the human colonial council chambers, a debate was raging. Some council members wanted to use humanity's new power to expand human territory. Others worried about the cost of being the galaxy's police force. We have spent more on this debt repayment than on our own colonies for the past year, complained Councillor Park Sang-hee. When does it end? Councillor Kim, the eldest member, stood slowly. It ends when every being in this galaxy can live without fear of oppression. It ends when justice is the rule, not the exception. It ends when we can look at ourselves in the mirror and know we did the right thing. But the cost, another counselor began. The cost of justice is always high, Kim interrupted. But the cost of injustice is higher. Ask the Kethmori. Ask any species that has suffered. While the galaxy looked away, Elder Thexan returned to his balcony as the sun set over his restored world. A message had arrived from Captain Park, now commanding the new galactic peacekeeping force. Elder Thexan, the message said. The debt is finally paid in full. The Kethmori people are free. Their culture is restored. And justice has been served. The promise made 200 years ago has been kept. But Thexan knew the truth was more complex. The original debt had been for saving human lives. But in repaying it, the humans had saved something much larger. They had saved the idea that promises mattered, that the strong should protect the weak, that justice was worth fighting for. A year later, the first Kethmori University in 3 centuries opened its doors. Students from dozens of species came to learn from the restored archives. The university's motto, carved in stone above the entrance, was simple. Never again. Captain Park attended the opening ceremony, standing quietly at the back of the crowd as Elder Thexan gave the dedication speech. 200 years ago, the elder said, my people helped humans when they were weak and lost. We gave them technology to survive, because it was the right thing to do. We expected nothing in return except the satisfaction of helping others. The crowd listened in respectful silence. The humans never forgot that kindness. When we were the ones who were weak and lost, they remembered their debt. But they gave us far more than they owed. They gave us hope. Thexan's eyes found Park in the crowd. The humans taught us that promises matter, that debts must be paid. But most importantly, they taught us that strength without justice is worthless. After the ceremony, Park approached the elder. It has been an honor to serve your people, he said simply. The honor was ours, Thexan replied. You have shown the galaxy what honor truly means. As Park walked away, He thought about the tablet that had started it all. One simple promise, carved in stone 2 centuries ago. The humans had kept that promise, but in doing so, they had written a new chapter in galactic history. Behind him, Kethmori children played in gardens that bloomed where once there had been only sorrow. Above him, ships from a dozen species worked together to defend the weak and protect the innocent. The debt was paid, but the real work was just beginning. In the years that followed, children across the galaxy would learn a new saying: never owe a debt to a human, because they will always collect. But never be afraid to help a human, because they will never forget your kindness. The galaxy had learned to fear human justice, but it had also learned to hope for human mercy. And in the end, that balance would reshape the stars themselves. The promise carved in stone had become the foundation of a new galactic order, and somewhere among the stars, other ancient debts waited to be discovered, other promises waited to be kept. Humanity had found its true purpose in the cosmos, not to conquer, but to remember, not to rule, but to serve, not to destroy, but to restore. The debt was paid, the galaxy was changed, and the humans, keeper of promises and defenders of justice, continued their eternal watch among the stars.